Hi, I'm Sky, and welcome to Enchantiverse, the podcast dedicated to the wide universe of things that enchant us and make us feel alive. I can't wait to talk about all things magical and beautiful with you. Hi, everyone. I'm glad to be back with you guys. It's been a bit. It's been a while, and I know this. And man, it has been quite a difficult few months, not going to lie. There has been just about every bad thing that could happen has happened in my life recently. I've been dealing with, all of it. I don't want to go into all the details and bog everyone else down with my woes and my struggles. But I do want you all to know that this podcast has been on my mind and that I haven't been just abandoning it at all. I've been deeply desiring to get back to recording episodes and putting it out there. When I've been pondering about what to talk about for this next episode, I feel like the only thing that really was coming to mind that felt right, because I go off of that kind of feeling a lot with creative endeavors, was to talk about the season of life that we're in together right now, which is the springtime. And I personally love the springtime. It's beautiful. It's colorful. I feel like everything's coming back to life. And I've just been thinking about that a lot. I've been thinking about all of the symbolism behind the spring and why do we even have the spring? You know what I mean? So I want to talk about that today, and I want to talk about the seasons a little bit and finding the magic of the springtime. Before we get started, of course, I like to start this off with a little bit of imagination. So that's what we're going to do today. So if you will, close your eyes if you're able to. If not, it's okay. Wherever you are, just kind of tune into your imagination, tune into your most beautiful part of your brain where you go to just relax and unwind, and just picture with me that you are in a meadow. But unlike a regular day of sitting in a meadow, you are an inch tall. You're an inch tall, and so the blades of grass are giant overhead, and you can see the dew on all of the leaves, and you can see all of the details of the flowers around you and the dandelions, and everything is just magnified, and you're able to really appreciate the beauty of the meadow that you're in up close, and you're able to feel that beauty in a different kind of way. What are the things that you see? What are the things that you appreciate? How do you feel? I kind of want to tune into that this week. How would I feel approaching the springtime and the nature that it brings if I was an inch tall? Like Thumbelina. If you were Thumbelina, how would it be? Minus like being taken by a frog to be married off to her toad son, and then like having to hide away from the maybugs, and having to like live with the field mouse and be married off to the mole, and all of that Thumbelina had to go to. All of the terrors that would come if you were an inch tall during the springtime. No, if you were Thumbelina but you're already married to the fairy prince, the king of the flower spirits, how would that feel? And what would you see? Those are the things I'm going to try to tune into that this week when I go outside for like my nature walks and spending time with my kids in the grass. I'm going to try to pretend that I'm an inch big. So I thought I'd give that little prompt to you guys as well, because I think that that is fun. And I feel like I'm always looking for like fresh ways to experience life and to try and find the beauty in things. So that's my challenge this week for you guys. Pretend like you are 1 inch. Okay. So I'm already starting to feel better as I'm talking with you guys. This podcast really helps me so much. It helps me work out thoughts that I have. It helps me work out feelings that like are hidden away in my heart. And so I feel like this episode might be a little more vulnerable. But I think that it will do me good, and I hope that it does you guys good, because that's the whole point. So yeah, let's talk about spring. Now, I feel like some people, when it comes to springtime, it's like, yes, like winter is gone, it's starting to warm up, like everything's beautiful again, and it brings some people so much happiness and so much joy and like contentment. But I don't know, maybe I'm crazy. I know I'm not crazy, because I looked this up in preparation for this podcast. But growing up, I remember the springtime coming and I'd feel this sense of like discontent. Like, I don't know how to describe it, just maybe a little anxious. Now, I have anxiety, but I remember growing up, the springtime would come and I'd feel a little anxious. And I loved Easter because we would go to church with my grandma and we'd do an Easter egg hunt with all the cousins. And, you know, that was like a magical time. But it helped ease kind of the stress that I felt. And so I looked it up today, because as I've gotten older, I feel like I've grown to appreciate the springtime more. But I've noticed I was so looking forward to the springtime. The winter was really hard for me this year. I have little kids and they have been just sick over and over and over again, you know, starting from the winter. Last year it was like 2 really bad sicknesses, and now I have 2 kids. And this year I was like, oh, maybe we can skip the 2 bad sicknesses. No, we had like 5 bad sicknesses back to back, and that does something to a person. But not including the sickness, we've had death in our family, really traumatic, really painful death of a very close loved family member. And it brings a different kind of perspective, and it brings a different darkness to those cold months. You know what I mean? So there's been that. There's also just been a lot of change in my life. I feel like nothing feels secure, I guess you could say. Like, none of the external things feel super secure and in place. So it makes winter just a little more cold. I feel like when that's going on, it makes you feel a little bit more bare and more exposed to the elements, you know? So I was looking up spring, like why growing up did I feel that kind of feeling? And before I read what I found, I recently read The Wind in the Willows. Well, I read it about 10 times this past year, because I love it. The first time, I will say, if you read The Wind in the Willows, I feel like the first time getting through it is harder. But once I got through it once, then I kept returning to it. Like I listened to it on Audible and I couldn't stop. It was just so comforting to me for some reason. I love it. It's one of my favorite books. So I came across this quote and it says, I think it's referring to the mole, if you know the story. And it says, spring was moving in the air above and in the earth below and around him, penetrating even his dark and lowly little house with its spirit of divine discontent and longing. And I felt like that was a really good description of spring. Like it has this sense of like divine discontent and longing. Like, yeah, that's probably one of the best descriptors I've ever heard. And I always kind of felt that growing up. So I did some research, just minimal, to try and figure out like, why am I alone? Am I alone? Am I the only one that feels this in the spring? And what I found is, here, let me just read this paragraph. It says, one of the major reasons people may feel more depressed and anxious in the springtime is simply because of change. For some people, change feels like an exciting opportunity, while others may feel an intense instability in their lives. Change, as school becomes summer, vacation, change in the weather, and change in daily routines can all produce overwhelming anxiety. Springtime is also associated with major life events, like graduations or weddings. These special occasions are often associated with big parties, social events, and family interactions, which may trigger intense feelings of anxiety. Memories of these events may also produce feelings of deep nostalgia or melancholy, potentially triggering depressive thoughts. Other factors may be physiological. Many people experience spring allergies, where our immune systems are working twice as hard to feel twice as crummy for days on end. Our bodies and our minds might feel hopelessly depleted during the height of hay fever. Hormones, specifically melatonin, might also contribute to mood changes in the springtime. This hormone plays a vital role in regulating our sleep cycles, and any change in this system may produce sleep problems or grogginess, which is never beneficial to our mental health. Now, I read that and I was like, wow, maybe I'm not crazy. Maybe I'm not alone. I've just always felt this. This year, I was really starting to feel like maybe the spring would be, I was looking forward to it. I guess you could say I was really looking forward to it. And now I'm kind of feeling, even coming out of the darkness of winter, I'm still feeling some of the, I'm going through grief, but even on top of that, I feel this still kind of overwhelming feeling. And it was good to know I'm not alone. And I wanted to kind of bring that up just in case you might feel that. I didn't want you to feel alone. But I do love the spring, and I love how beautiful everything is. And I love the symbolism of the springtime. And I love that everything's coming back to life and that, it's getting warmer. I love that perfect, 70s weather. I feel like spring is interesting because it feels so fleeting, especially where I live. I'm from Nevada, Vegas, Henderson area, and I feel like it doesn't last very long, And so sometimes I get super excited for spring, and then I think subconsciously I get nervous that it's just going to go so fast and I'm not going to get to enjoy it, and I'm not going to get to experience everything it has to offer, and then it's just going to get really hot, and I kind of dread that. So it's it's an interesting season. But I feel like maybe that's part of it. I know that I was listening to a podcast this week that talked about wildflowers and how in the spring, I think they're called perennials. There's these certain wildflowers and they just show up for a few days and you do miss them. you do miss them if you're not paying attention. And it's really fascinating to me. A lot of springtime feels like that to me. Like it's fleeting, you know, it's like here for a moment and you don't want to miss it. And you just kind of wait on the edge of your seat for it. And I feel like it's a very familiar feeling to me. Maybe you can relate. I think I've kind of described it, but I feel like in my life, I've often felt like I'm waiting for something. Like I'm longing for something that's not here, or I'm longing for something that feels like it's not from this world. And spring kind of reminds me of that. It's like a glimpse. It's like a small glimpse of heaven. But you long for the fullness of it, you know? You long for like the forever spring, like where it's springtime all the time. I don't know. These are just some thoughts I've been having. But I've been thinking about why we have spring and why we have winter, and the winters of our lives and the hard times of our lives. And I was doing some research too to see, you know, like why does the earth have winter? I think what I found was that, you know, the snow is important. It like helps like us with our water reserve. It helps like the soil. I also read that the spring or the winter makes the earth rest, and it like basically like takes in all the energy or stores up all the energy so that it can burst forth again in the spring. So it's important in the world, and I think it's important in our lives. There was a quote that my brother actually sent to me years ago when I was going through a hard time, and he wrote this to me in an email. And it really helped me, and I remembered it always. It says, "Good timber does not grow with ease. The stronger the wind, the stronger the trees. The further the sky, the greater the length. The more the storm, the more the strength. By sun and cold, by rain and snow, in trees and men, good timbers grow." I really like that, and I think it's a very good depiction of why we need those winter times in our lives, why we need those hard times in our lives. We do grow stronger. We grow stronger. We're able to burst forth in the spring, you know? And yeah, maybe those bursting forths that we feel are fleeting. Maybe they do only last maybe a moment where you feel like you have this shot upward in your growth of your character, or of your strength, or of your anything that you're trying to improve, you know. The bursts forward, they are short. they don't often last for never-ending amounts of time. It's this cycle, just like the seasons, you know. Each season is important. Each season is growing us and pruning us and cultivating us and who we are. And I think that thought helps me. That thought helps me. I feel like even though things have been hard lately, and things, I've gone through hard things before this, and I look back at the things that I've gone through, and it's kind of amazing when you look back on your life and you see all that you've overcome, and you see all the pains that you've endured and the things that you've gone through, and to see that you came out of it and you had those big boosts of energy, and those, you've had the happy, the super happy, the super extra beautiful times, and it all just cycles through like a season. But I'm grateful. I'm grateful because I feel like, having gone through some of these things so many times, now, even though I feel that that divine discontent within my heart, I also feel stronger. I feel like I've done this before, if that makes sense. And I know that I know I have the resilience to come through. And so I just want to send that message of love and strength to you, that if it feels like you're coming out of a hard time, or maybe you're in the midst of a hard time, of a cold winter, that you've done this before. You've had cold winters before. In fact, if you use the analogy of the seasons, we have them every year. We have them often. They cycle. And you've done this, and you can do this again. And the beautiful thing about life is that we're not in it alone. We have each other, and we have the Lord, we have God, we have all of the blessings and the strength that he gives us to get through these things. And I'm grateful for that as well. I feel like one of the biggest things that's been helping me, and one of the biggest things that I'm trying to focus on during this time where I'm kind of feeling these anxious feelings, is gratitude. And gratitude it's extra fun in the springtime. I know we focus on it in the autumn, like during the harvest times, right? But the springtime's actually a really fun time to practice gratitude. I've noticed. I feel like there's so much to see. It's kind of like that thing I told you about with the wildflowers. There's these fleeting moments of intense beauty, and these just gorgeous sights, these beautiful times. I feel like when I start to think about everything that I have and everything I've been given, things come into picture, things come into focus just a little bit more. And I'm able to see a little bit more clearly, and I'm able to feel that anxiety and that discontent feeling leave me a bit, and I'm able to feel more whole again when I do think of everything that I have to be grateful for. When I think about it, it's actually kind of cool how gratitude is almost like, it's like a magic spell. It's like, yeah, it's magic, because you can be in one of the worst moods or one of the coldest, darkest places in your mind. But the minute you start thinking about all that you have been given and everything you have to be grateful for, counting your many blessings, so to speak, it's crazy, the shift. Like, it's a surefire way to bring yourself out of that like mental realm. Yeah, it's totally magic. That's totally magic. The more I'm thinking about it, the more my mind is being blown. Like, I love that. I love that. I feel like the things that, like, well, this is gonna go off on a whole tangent, but I feel like what's really cool about like the things that God says in scripture is that they are true. And when something is true, like God keeps his word, you know what I mean? So it tells us to be grateful, tells us how it will make our lives better, how it will bless us. And anyway, when you do it, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm instantly like, this has helped, you know? It's really cool how God can do that by his word, and how like just what he says, it goes. It just does. So, wow. I feel like sometimes I have more like positive revelations just recording these podcast episodes than anyone who ever listens to it. Well, sometimes that's why I started the podcast, was because I wanted an outlet. I wanted a podcast dedicated to everything that enchants us, everything that makes us feel alive, everything that makes us feel like our lives are just a little bit better, a little bit more magical after we focus or think about that thing, Anyway, yeah, kind of a tangent, but if you want a little magic spell this week, gratitude. I'm going to try to do better about it this week as well. I'm going to try to really I've tried. I've started writing more in my journal, which I've always been a pretty good journal keeper, but over the past few months with everything going on, I have not as much as I'd like to be. And I really, really, really want to be better about writing down the things I'm grateful for that day. And there really is just something incredible and like changing about it. Okay, my goodness, I just literally Googled like a question about gratitude. Like, is gratitude like magic? And this is what I found. I found this article from Utah State University. Okay, I'm just gonna read it to you because it was so good. It says, what if I told you there was an amazing pill that made you feel physically healthier, less lonely, sick less often, recover faster, reduce aches and pains, increase your ability to cope with stress, and you experienced more feelings of joy, enthusiasm, happiness, and connectedness? Not to mention, it could lower your blood pressure, boost your immune system, and reduce your lifetime risk for depression, anxiety, substance abuse, and even reduce the likelihood of suicide. Oh, and you also experience less resentment, greed, bitterness, and you sleep better at night, among dozens of other proven benefits. How much would you be willing to pay for a bottle of these dream come true pills? What about just one pill? Now, what if I told you it was actually free and that it had 0 negative side effects? Would you take it every single day? So, and it says it's not a pill at all, but science shows that gratitude actually produces all of these benefits and dozens more for our bodies and brains. Good old-fashioned gratitude and appreciation is the magic prescription you've been waiting for. It was Roman writer Cicero, born in 106 BC, who is quoted as saying, "Gratitude is not only the greatest of virtues, but the parent of all the others." Countless scholars have conducted hundreds of studies on gratitude, and most agree that this is spot on. It says, think about that for a minute. In fact, take a minute to think about the happiest people that you're closest to. Why are they so happy? What characteristics and virtues do they possess? Chances are gratitude is near the top of that list. In fact, some of the happiest people we know seem to be the ones who have learned to enjoy their day, enjoy what they have, and enjoy who they are and who they are with. One of the world's leading scientific experts and scholars on gratitude, Robert Emmons, even shared that gratitude is literally one of the few things that can measurably change people's lives. And not only does gratitude feel good, but it's also motivating. When we feel grateful, we want to share that goodness we've received with others. I want to skip ahead. So it says that Emmons points out that gratitude has 2 components. The first is an affirmation of goodness. We affirm that there is good in the world. We are aware of gifts and benefits we have received. But this doesn't mean that life is perfect. It doesn't ignore hassles, stresses, burdens. But when we take a step back and look at life as a whole, gratitude encourages us to identify some amount of good in our life. He explains that gratitude is more than just a feeling. Gratitude implies humility, a recognition that we could not be where we are or who we are in life without the contribution of others. Being grateful is an acknowledgement that there are good and enjoyable things in this world. The second component of gratitude, Emmons explains, is figuring out where the goodness comes from. It's the recognition that the source of this goodness we enjoy is always outside of ourselves, either other people or higher powers. So gratitude in this sense means we humbly recognize that there is goodness around us, and then gratitude is an emotional response and feeling we experience when we acknowledge receiving a valuable benefit from someone else. That is so cool. He says, we know happiness and gratitude are related, but is it like the chicken and the egg thing? Which one comes first? Could it be that happy people are just more grateful? Findings from science shows it actually works the other way around, and that gratitude could indeed be the parent of all other virtues, just like Cicero said. In his popular TED Talk, Brother David Steindl-Rast, a Benedictine monk, argues that in daily life we must see that it is not happiness that makes us grateful, but gratefulness that makes us happy. It says, he goes on to share that gratefulness is the key to a happy life that we hold in our hands, because if we are not grateful, then no matter how much we have, we will not be happy, because we will always want to have something else or something more. Wow. It goes on. It's a pretty cool article. I love that quote though, that in daily life we must see that it is not happiness that makes us grateful, but gratefulness that makes us happy. That's really empowering, I feel like, because it shows that even during times that aren't happy, even during those metaphorically winter months of our lives, the winter times of our lives, like, we can focus in on gratitude, and that it can produce an uplifted spirit. What a blessing that is. Wow. I feel so grateful right now. I really do. I feel that is really empowering to me. I hope it is to you. Wow. It was reminding me, as I was talking about gratitude and reading that, it was reminding me of one of my favorite books, which is Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. It is an amazing fantasy book. Like, one of the best books I've ever read, for sure. It's so good. But in it, there's this character that's one of my favorite characters I've ever read about. And his name's Kelsier. And he's like he's like a leader. He's a leader in a really dark time. I won't go into the details of the book, but basically in this book, there's like slavery. There's this guy called the Lord Ruler who has like enslaved a bunch of people and made everything terrible in the world. And anyway, it's a lot. There's a lot of lore about everything in this world. But this character, Kelsier, he's just like fighting back. He's fighting back against it, and he's choosing to fight against like all the odds and outwit and outsmart, Oh, he's so good. He is so good. Anyway, one of the things I love, it starts out with him, the book, talking about how he smiles. And I'm going to read this quote. Kelsier glanced down at his hands and forearms. They still burned sometimes, though he was certain the pain was only in his mind. He looked up at Menace and smiled. You ask why I smile, good man Menace. Well, The Lord Ruler thinks he has claimed laughter and joy for himself. I'm disinclined to let him do so. This is one battle that doesn't take very much effort to fight. Oh, I get chills. I get chills reading that. So he smiles. He smiles because the Lord Ruler thinks that he has claimed laughter and joy for himself, that no one else can have it. And he's like, this is one battle that doesn't take very much effort to fight. So he smiles. He smiles in the face of this terrible darkness in the world. And he smiles in the face of this awful, awful person that does awful things to people and thinks that he can make everyone miserable. And I love that he says that. It doesn't take very much effort to fight. I feel that, and it inspired. I remember feeling so inspired when I read Mistborn, so inspired by this character, and thinking that was something I was really taking away from the book, that no matter what is going on in life and the hardships that we face, I mean, if you are a believer, you believe that there is an adversary, that there is a force of darkness that's against us in our lives and that wants us to feel terrible all the time. And I remember walking away from the story and being like, you know what, I'm going to do the same. Like, I'm going to smile. And that's a way of fighting back. It's a way of being stubbornly glad, stubbornly happy, and stubbornly like grateful. You know what I mean? Like there's a power in a smile. And I think there's a power in choosing to start every day, no matter how difficult, with a smile. I tell myself that when I'm up all night with one of my babies, up all night, and there's nothing, those nights where you want nothing more than sleep. And I don't know if, I'm sure people have experienced it without having children, where maybe you're sick, you're up all night sick and there's just nothing you want more than sleep, or maybe you're up in pain or with insomnia. I experienced it so much though, and still am, with tiny children. There's something, it's a very difficult thing to go through, an extreme lack of sleep. But even still, it's something that I try to incorporate into my life, that no matter how rough the night, no matter how much I'm dreading the upcoming day, I can start every day with a smile, and I can start every day with the choice that it's a new day and it's going to be a good one, and like kind of just trying to start there. Starting with a smile, I found, is really powerful. Another little magic spell to take with you this week. One that's really easy. Anyway, I really like that. Okay. The next thing that I kind of want to close out with is I was looking up some fun spring quotes, and I found this one. Now, this is really interesting because as I was looking up like fun spring quotes to talk about and things to kind of just like romanticize and think about all the pretty things, I was putting it all together and I was in a good mood as I was doing it. And I feel like when you're going through grief, when you're going through pain in life, I feel like you have these moments of being up, and then you have moments of being really down. And when I even started recording this podcast tonight, I was really feeling down. And I was thinking, I don't know how I'm going to get on and just read these pretty quotes when I feel down myself. And anyway, I'm just grateful for this because I'm actually feel myself coming back to life even recording this. I feel myself being reminded of all the good and the beautiful things in the world. And so I just thank you guys for being with me and listening to all the silly things I have to say, because this really does help me, and I hope that it gives you something, even if it's just feeling my friendship through the phone or through whatever listening device you listen on. Just know I love you and I'm grateful for you. Okay, so anyway, I was looking up all of these fun quotes, and the one that I really loved about spring was this. It's by Rochelle E. Goodrich. It says, "The first day of spring is like the first time a boy holds your hand. A flood of skin-tingling warmth consumes you, and everything shines with a fresh, colorful glow, making you forget that anything as cold and harsh as winter ever existed." Oh, so beautiful to me. The first real day of spring is like the first time a boy holds your hand. You know that feeling? Oh, such a good feeling. And I really liked that description of spring. So I want to kind of harness that feeling this week and try to get more giddy in my life. And I think that the only way to do that for me, going through the things I'm going through right now, is going to be by delving into more gratitude and more of that willful gratitude. Yeah. But even just that little bit of me talking with you guys tonight helped me kind of come out of that. And then I'm going to try to harness that feeling, that first real day of spring feeling. The first time a boy holds your hand, a flood of skin-tingling warmth. Everything shines with a fresh, colorful glow. I'm going to try to live there for a little bit. And even if it is fleeting, that's okay. That's okay, because it made our day just a little bit more enchanted, right? Yeah. I hope you'll do that with me. I hope that this week we can band together, choose to wake up with a smile, and to try and see all the beautiful things around us and to be grateful for them. To maybe say a prayer of gratitude a few times a day, every time we see something, or every time we experience something beautiful this week. I'm going to really try to be better about this, and I'm going to really try to recognize all of the magical things about spring, all the beautiful things that this world is offering, all of the things that I've already been given, and come back to life. That's hard. When winter, you feel dead, and in the winters of our lives we feel so dead, and the spring is for coming back to life. So if you've been feeling a little bit of that too, come back to life with me. We'll do it together. Feel free to leave me any comments, by the way, on any of my, if you find this video on YouTube, if you I don't know if you can leave comments in podcasts. You can leave me a review. Definitely leave me a review. If you're listening on the Apple or Spotify, leave me a review. And if you're listening on YouTube, leave me some comments. Let me know how your week is going. Let me know if there's any other things that you want to talk about in the coming videos as well. And I'm grateful for you guys. Thank you for spending this time with me. I just wish you all the most beautiful day. I hope that it's sunshiny and warm, and I hope that it's like bursting with energy and just with all the positivity that life has to offer you. And I love you, and I will talk to you so soon. I'm going to be better about posting, and I've recognized, but before I go, I've recognized that in order to make this happen, this creative project that I love so much, the Enchantiverse podcast, it has to be more raw. It has to be more unfiltered, and it has to be less produced and less edited. So even tonight, as I record this, I'm not going to edit it. So you might get a slightly more imperfect podcast moving forward. And I hope that's okay with you guys. I think that there's probably something beautiful in that. Even though it might make me a little bit more self-conscious to hear all of my ums and all of my pauses. And, you know, I hope that you'll be patient with me, and I hope that it's still a good listen. So if you have any feedback from me there, feel free to let me know too. But I think that if it's going to continue at a more regular pace, then it's going to have to be less filtered, less produced, which probably is for the best anyway. Anyway, I love you guys. Have a beautiful, magical, enchanted day. Love you. Bye.